What is the difference between FBA and FBM? So FBA basically means fulfilled by Amazon, and FBM means fulfilled by merchant or the seller itself. Key differences between FBA and FBM come down to your inventory storages, your order fulfillment, your returns, your shipping speeds, and your control over the fulfillment. See that the inventory storage in FBA is done in Amazon's warehouse, while in FBM it's obviously done by the seller itself, or you can use a 3PL. However it works for you. Order fulfillment in FBA is Amazon will pick up your product, they'll pack it, and then ship the order to the customer. FBM means that you will handle all of this process yourself as a seller. Customer service, on the other hand, in FBA would be done by Amazon, and in FBM by the seller itself. Return handling, Amazon will handle your returns. In FBM, it would be you as a seller handling all of your returns. Now, Prime eligibility is another thing which is impacted when you do FBM. You don't get the Prime eligible badge. That means you won't be able to ship your products as fast as FBA sellers would, and your shipping speed would be dependent on your logistics partner, right? On the other hand, on FBM, Amazon offers like 1-day shipping speeds, faster speed with Prime badge, which also affects your conversion rates. There are other key differences like the controls over fulfillment. In FBM, obviously, you can package your product yourself. You'll have a control over your branding, your fulfillment. But in FBA, that's very minimal, and you have to follow what Amazon processes highlight according to their guidelines. Storage fee on FBM, obviously, you have no storage fee. You'll just be buying wherever you will be to your 3PL if you use any. But in FBA, you'll be charged monthly storage fees according to your product dimensions. Now, these vary because your product could be light product, it could be a heavy product, but these definitely get charged on FBA. Fulfillment fee is the main fee that we're going to be discussing here. In FBM, there is no fulfillment fee, obviously, because you aren't using any of their services. But in FBA, you'll be charged based on the size and weight of your product and the dimensions of your product. So the bulkier the product, the higher the cost it will be for selling FBA. Buy box competition is another thing that we face when we're doing FBM. You'll have slightly less percentage of the buy box if you're doing a wholesale model, and if you're competing against FBA sellers, you'll have a disadvantage because Amazon always prefers people with FBA, and the buy box percentage here will always highly likely stay with FBA sellers. Now, this is an important point because when I see a lot of wholesale sellers starting wholesale, they think about FBM. It's doable, obviously. Amazon allows you to do FBM on wholesale models, but it's always preferred that we stick with the FBA in this case. We're going to discuss some of the FBA and FBM advantages and disadvantages. We'll start with FBA. Now, in FBA, we've seen that we've had the Prime badge, which does improve your conversion rates. And obviously, the whole process is easier because you don't have any hassle of packing or repacking your products. And Amazon will handle any of your returns, it'll handle your customer service if you want, and you'll be most likely getting the buy box here. But the disadvantages of FBA is that there's some fees like fulfillment, storages, and removal that you'll be incurring. And even though this isn't the biggest disadvantage here, the biggest disadvantage is that if you can't sell your product in FBA, say it doesn't get enough sales, you'll likely incur aging charges, which means Amazon charges you if you can't sell your product within, say, 60 days or 120 days or 180 days. They have different tiers where they'll charge you different charges for different time frames. And that's one of the biggest disadvantages that we've seen across a lot of sellers on FBA. And then there's some other things like when you send in your product, there's inbound shipment fees, and Amazon isn't perfect. They can lose your inventory as well. And that's another big issue that comes in with some of the shipments that we have seen in the past. Now, coming to FBM, there's a few advantages of doing FBM. That means you'll have some control over your packaging, your branding. You can use your own packaging. You won't be incurring all the costs that the FBA sellers have, the FBA fee or the storage fees, right? But again, there's disadvantages. There's no Prime badge. You'll be struggling with buy box. You'll have a lot of workload on you if you start getting a lot of orders. And it's really difficult to scale FBM once you start getting all those spikes on your sale. And in the end, I would say just stick to FBA if you can. You'll have lesser margins as compared to FBM sellers. But if your product is light and it's doable to do FBA, just go for it. If your product is really bulky, and you'll see that if your product is really bulky, you'll have a lot of FBA fee, which will shrink your margins. And it's really doable to go ahead with FBM instead of FBA. And you can save a lot of margins. Now, I've seen a lot of sellers say that we're just starting out, we don't want to send in a lot of shipments to warehouses or FBA. then you can just stick to FBM, and obviously you can just test your product. And if it does well, you can obviously scale it and go for FBA in future if you want, if that makes sense. I do have a lot of other sessions where I explain how to get started with FBA and FBM and how you can calculate your margins. You obviously need to do your margin calculations before you start doing either of the models. I'll explain more in my next video how you can run those calculations and how you'll actually know what your true margin is if you're doing FBA or FBM.